Hey guys, and welcome back. As you can see from the title, this is part 2 of our countermeasures ranking. Not as big an intro as it was to the first part, but just in case, if you did not watch the first part of the video, 1, what are you even doing here? 2, here's the list real quick to catch up before we continue. Okay, we all got it? Good, now let's continue the list with number 12. The Ship of the Sleepwalkers from the new Countermeasures Series 2. This is like my 5th take trying to record this particular segment talking about this story. I just find I don't have a lot to say about it. It's a really good mystery. I love how it opens in media res. I love how the team is trying to figure out what they're doing on the ship and what the purpose of the ship is. I love the temporary team member they have, the, MI5 agent trying to help them. I really enjoy the villains. These are some of the most intimidating villains the series has had up to this point. Not the most. We'll start talking about them as we still climb higher up this list, but they are definitely up there. And I really love the sense of tension and atmosphere. Because this is a cruise liner in the middle of the ocean, this story does a really good job of selling that the team is pretty much all alone on this one. Number 11. State of Emergency. The finale of Countermeasures Series 1. I really like this story. It's the perfect culmination of everything that's happened in Series 1. All 3 stories were building up to this point. Well, maybe not the Pelage Project. Actually, was it? It's hard to recall at this point, but, every story sort of led into this, and it's a perfect finale, because all those threads that were set up in those 3 stories are paid off excellently here. The only real problem is that, as I said in my review video for it, this story has unfortunately aged poorly. Without getting too deep into it, I'll just repeat what I said there. So the villain of this story is a bigoted nationalist who vehemently disagrees with the incumbent government. He engineers a conspiracy trying to show the government as incompetent while engineering a coup to try and take power. As an American listening to this story, boy, it hits differently after January 6th. Other than that, though, everything about this story is great. Again, there's this really great sense of mystery as the team tries to figure out what's going on. Simon Williams gives a really good performance as Ian realizes, because of his position in the military, he's helpless to do anything. Toby is sort of the Machiavellian mastermind. And the standout, really, thinking about it, is Karen Gledhill as Allison because of what she goes through. I won't go too much into it here, but if you heard Series 1, and I think I talked about in my review, what's going on in her personal life, it's devastating here. Now we're getting into the good stuff. The cream of the crop. The best of the best. The top 10, starting with number 10, My Enemy's Enemy, from the new Countermeasures Series 2. Finally, it took us a while, but we finally have a Lady Suzanne Clare story to talk about. And if you've been following along with this list, all of the Lady Suzanne Clare stories are in the top 10. She is the best addition, or she's one of the best additions to the Countermeasures series, and she's one of the best things about the new Countermeasures series. Carolyn Seymour is the highlight of every story she's in. Well, 2 out of 3 of the stories she's in. And this is one of them. Lady Suzanne Clare seeks out the Countermeasures team because another wealthy socialite is trying to encroach on her territory, and he has the money and provisions to do so. And August Fraser makes an enemy of the Countermeasures team as well. Lady Suzanne Clare and August Fraser are both terrific antagonists, both fighting the Countermeasures team and fighting each other. And as I said, my only real complaint about this story is that it doesn't know what it wants to be. It's trying to be a farce. Like, you have these very comedic elements happening, like the way Toby goes undercover at a gentleman's club, or how it's ultimately revealed that Lady Suzanne Clare and August Fraser are cousins, or even the fact that Lady Suzanne Clare and August Fraser are defeated because an alien art critic owed Ian a favor. But like I said, it wants to be a farce, but at the same time, it's still trying to take itself too serious. That's my only complaint with this story, because otherwise, it's just amazing, and it's one of the funnest stories in this series. Number 9, The Time of the Intelligence, from the new Countermeasures Series 2. After what we've had for so long, this is a story Countermeasures needed, because for the most part, minus a couple examples, most of the threats the Countermeasures team have faced have been domestic. Earthbound, alien tech might have been involved, but that was always it. Given why the Countermeasures team was founded, remembrance of the Daleks, it's nice to see the Countermeasures team facing an actual alien incursion. I love the depiction of the great intelligence here. I have to admit, I was initially kind of worried because, you have this alien eldritch god, essentially, that, the Doctor, it was set up that the Doctor was the only person who could defeat it. Without the Doctor there and having a bunch of humans from 1970s Earth defeat it, it could have come off not well, to say the least, because you'd have to nerf the intelligence to make it defeatable. The solution they come up with works well, and it doesn't diminish the intelligence in any capacity. This is also another great story for the chemistry of the team. I haven't talked about that a lot because they've been really good in most of the stories, some of them better than others. But the chemistry between our leads has been kind of a constant, and this is one of the standouts of that. Number 8, A Gamble with Time, from the new Countermeasures Series 1. This is the first story to feature Lady Suzanne Clare, and honestly, of the 3 she's been in, this might be my favorite. Her third story is still higher up on the list, yes, but speaking strictly for her, I like this one more than that one. There are other reasons why that story ranks higher, if that makes any sense, but this is such a good introduction for one of the Countermeasures team's best villains. This is another international story. The Countermeasures team is in, I believe it's Monte Carlo for this story, and the sound design does a really good job of making it feel like the team is not in London. Like I mentioned with Peshka, when the team first went international, it didn't do a good job of making it feel international, and here it feels so much better. Lady Suzanne Clare is, I think, at her most threatening because she holds all the cards. She's completely in charge. And, every time the Countermeasures team or the third party makes their move, she has a counter for them. The new Countermeasures Series 1, I've said this before, I think is the weakest set in the entire range. This is easily the best story in it, and while I would say maybe skip it, it's kind of worth it for this set alone. Especially because Lady Suzanne Clare makes reappearances for the rest of the series after this. Number 7, Artificial Intelligence, from Series 1. This is kind of your standard AI goes rogue type story, but it's done really well, and the buildup of what's happening over the course of this story as we find out how the AI is going rogue and essentially why. It's very creatively done, and more importantly, it's very subtle. Like the revelation that there really is no antagonist in this story. The AI is operating the way it's supposed to, but it's just applying its logic to the nth degree, or it's going in sort of a backwards direction. The revelation is very jaw-dropping, and it's handled really well. Pamela Salem plays a dual role here as Professor Rachel Jensen and the voice of this AI, because the scientist in charge of the project modeled it after her. Number 6, The Mavellan Maneuver and the Dalek Gambit, the 2-part finale to the new Countermeasures Series 3, and the series finale to Countermeasures. This was a great way to end the series. My only critique I'll start off with is I don't like how Rachel's exit was handled. One, I feel like she should have stayed dead when it looked like they killed her with the explosion of the Dalek ship. But 2, it's ultimately revealed that she faked her death because she wanted to get out of Countermeasures because of this sense of dissatisfaction she'd been feeling for some time. A plot element that was introduced only in this story. I feel like had it been more constant throughout the series, I'd be a little more forgiving about it. But as it stands, it's not something I agree with. I'm not going to say it's bad or poorly handled. I just don't agree with the direction the story took. And like I said, I feel like Rachel dying and would have been just more shocking. Like when it first happened, I was stunned. I didn't mention it enough in my countermeasures reviews. I think I only mentioned it maybe twice, but Rachel is my favorite character in this series. And I just feel like the devastation of her going would have been so much better, especially because of the way it affects the team. Like, these are her friends and potentially lover in Ian's case, and just the way she chose to abandon them all. I'm spending too much time on this. Let's get to the good stuff, because this is number 6 in the ranking. The Mavellans are great. I really like the lead one. It's been way too long since I listened to these, and I really should have re-listened to the entire series before doing this. But I liked him. I liked his chemistry, his rapport with Carolyn Seymour as Lady Suzanne Clare. She's also great in this, and I like how the Daleks are handled. Like, it's not a full incursion. It's not an invasion force. It's just a scout ship of like 5 of them. And I also like it because it, for the finale, it ties in to the Countermeasures team's debut in Remembrance of the Daleks. I also like how they're handled in the story, because the Countermeasures team has to team up with the Mavellans, and the Mavellans do most of the heavy lifting. It's not the team themselves that defeat them, kind of like what I said with the Great Intelligence. The way they come up with it doesn't diminish the threat of the Daleks. Overall, this is a great send-off for this series, and it does leave it open-ended, just in case they ever decide to do more. Oh, how I hope they will do more. Now we're getting to the gold standard, the top 5, starting with number 5, The Changing of the Guard from Series 3. I don't feel I was quite clear enough on my thoughts on Series 3, so I'll try to rectify that here. Series 3 starts really strong and ends really strong, with some weak points in the middle. The Changing of the Guard opens with the team facing the ramifications of the events of Series 2. And this story is where we really start getting to see the lengths Templeton will go to. And I just now realize this is my first time talking about Templeton. Oh well, but after spending Series 2 as Toby's assistant, to see him here, so desperate to cling on to power and try to keep it, to the point of even threatening to shoot Ian's soldiers for insubordination, he paints himself in a really nasty light, and it's really effective given, in terms of narrative, what will come after this. Especially how he's rigging Toby's trial to try and end in his favor. But of course, it's Toby. He always has an ace up his sleeve because he knows how the machine of government works. The rest of the team is handled really well here. I do have to say the B plot is kind of lackluster. In an attempt to keep countermeasures going, the team is trying to hunt down a gangster who has somehow discovered the ability to clone himself. It's not as interesting as the A plot, Toby's trial, but I do like how the two plot lines kind of weave together towards the end. And even though I'm not a fan of the B plot, it's not bad. It's still really good. And the strength of the A plot does more than enough to make up for the shortcomings of the secondary plot. Number 4, Sins of the Father from Series 2. What a brutal way to end Series 2, which so far has been a massive improvement over Series 1. This story is phenomenal. And it's also a really good conclusion to Toby's arc throughout these first 2 series. In Series 1, he was willing to sacrifice his team, if need be, for Queen and Country. And then throughout Series 2, he's trying to keep them in the dark, which, given shady government organization, is not a good thing. And Countermeasures, to be fair, frames it as a bad thing and calls Toby out for it. But then as the story progresses, we see why. There are things Toby did that he regrets. He kind of sees himself as a bit of a monster. And he's keeping his team in the dark to protect him. It's been a really good arc for Toby, going from willing to sacrifice these people for the greater good to showing how much he cares about and values them. You know, the whole cast is great, as I've said, but obviously Hugh Ross as Toby Kinsella is the highlight here. And he's got a fantastic villain to play off of in Ray here, who, well, I won't spoil it. If you've followed along this far and still haven't heard Countermeasures, one, what are you doing here? And two, you are definitely missing out. Number 3, coincidentally enough, the finale of Series 3, Unto the Breach. This story is a masterclass in tension. Once it starts going, it never lets up. Once again, I have to praise the sound design here because it really goes a long way to helping set the scene of where this story takes place. Once again, this is a story where the team goes international, and once again, the sound design does a brilliant job of selling that they are not in England anymore, not in London anymore. They are in Berlin. And given that the original Countermeasure series is set during the Cold War, and even the new Countermeasures is set during the Cold War didn't end until the dissolution of the USSR in 1991. Anyway, where was I going with this? This story is set in Berlin during the Cold War, and the sound design and everything else does such a good job of making the team feel isolated. On the other side of the Iron Curtain, there are no allies. They are completely alone. And even back home, where, thanks to events of the previous story, Allison is, you know, they don't even have any allies at home. This story builds up and gets darker as it goes on, leading to an absolutely brilliant, jaw-dropping cliffhanger. Number 2, the new Countermeasures. Who killed Toby Kinsella? Real quick before I get into discussing the story itself, there is a quick caveat. Like I said in my review, this is actually 2 stories. Who killed Toby Kinsella and The Dead Don't Rise. As I stated in that original review, I believe this story originally aired on BBC Radio, where it was divided into the 2 stories. However, Big Finish sells these as one story, and thus I'm going to count it as one story. This is one of the reasons, along with the finale and the number 1, why I implemented the multi-parters count as one story, because this does blend really well into one story. With that out of the way, let's talk about it. I made it clear I'm not the biggest fan of the new Countermeasures. It's not bad, mostly, it's just not great. It is the weaker series, easily. That being said, Who Killed Toby Kinsella, its inaugural story, is easily the best in the new Countermeasures series. I've said this before with every story. The chemistry between our 4 leads is great. But for me, this is the story where it's at its absolute best. Simon Williams, Karen Gledhill, and Pamela Salem are tremendous together. I wish we had more of Toby, just to get to see him play off the team. But given his role in the original series, I think him being out of the picture also works really well. I think this is the story, out of all the stories in this entire series, that has the best side characters as well. We have one of Toby's old friends and colleagues. We have the villain, Mikhail, who is really good with a really great tragic backstory. Prince Hassan al-Nadir. The writers do a really good job of making him a fully fleshed out character and avoid making him an Arab stereotype, which I can't laud enough. And even Overton, I really liked Overton, the MI5 agent who's trying to protect the prince and suspects, because she doesn't have all the answers or have all the information, that the Countermeasures team might be trying to assassinate him. She's really good as well, and given the trajectory of this story, I wish she could have stayed on throughout the new Countermeasures as a regular. But as it is, the new Countermeasures is phenomenal. If you stop after the original series, I do highly recommend you listen to Who Killed Toby Kinsella. Even if you plan not to pursue the new Countermeasures, which I completely understand. I've talked about my sort of dislike for it. Dislike might be a little strong. Again, it's the weaker series. But definitely, above all else, at least get this one. Number 1. My favorite story in Countermeasures. Countermeasures Series 4. New Horizons, The Keep, Rise and Shine, and Clean Sweep. This is the finale to the original Countermeasures series, and what a finale it is. Everything that was built up from series 1 through 3 pays off beautifully here. We have some fantastic villains. The stakes have never been higher for the team. They're put in some pretty perilous positions. I don't think I made it clear, but this story opens after the team has lost, and in a way they're trying to pick up the pieces from that, and then trying to go forward and stop the threat with no resources on their side. This is also a great way to tie into the monthly range story, 1963, the Assassination Games, which reintroduced the Countermeasures team. This set is as close to perfect as the Countermeasures series gets. And if I'm being honest, if you don't go forward and listen to the new Countermeasures, it even kind of works. Because, granted, it's a very dark ending if you don't know what happens after it, but it's still really effective. The reason I implemented the multi-part stories count as one rule for this is because, honestly, I couldn't decide which of these stories is my favorite. They are all that good, and they all lend themselves wonderfully to one narrative. It's not like the previous series or even the new Countermeasures, where 4 episodes make up a season. These 4 stories are all part of a whole, and it's for the benefit of this set. And here you have it. This is my complete ranking for the entire Countermeasures series. Have you heard it yet? Given this is the final video on this series, I hope so. What were your thoughts? Please start a conversation in the comments below. I look forward to hearing your thoughts and opinions. As for what's coming up next, this took way longer than I wanted it to, so schedule's gonna continue to be kind of wonky. I'm sorry about that. But my plan right now is to finish the 9th Doctor Adventures Series 1. Last year as they came out, I reviewed Volume 1, Ravagers, and Volume 2, Respond to All Calls, and then I had to take a hiatus mainly because of overlap. If I recall correctly, I kind of had to stop because Flux was coming out, and I believe The Diary of River Song, which is a staple of my channel, so I always try to stay on top of that. But yes, ultimately I had to put off finishing the 9th Doctor Adventures. So my plan now is, nothing is set in stone, no dates or anything, to finish the last 2 releases of Series 1. Volume 3, Lost Warriors, and Volume 4, Old Friends. As of right now, I have no plans to do Series 2. I'm sorry, it's just because I fell so behind on this, I'm kind of behind. And also, in regards to my earlier statement with nothing being set in stone, there are other releases coming out that I kind of want to review and I'm really hyped for. Like, in July, we have the 2nd Doctor Adventures Beyond War Games. In August, we have the Diary of River Song Series 10. And I kind of want to do something with that because Series 10, 4-story box set, that puts us at 50 stories exactly. I kind of want to do a massive ranking of that, given how long this took, wish me luck. And then in October, we have the Eric Roberts spinoff, Master, is getting a 2nd series. So that's kind of where we're at. Like I said, my plan now is to try and finish the 9th Doctor Adventure Series 1. So anyway, what did you think? Remember to like, comment, subscribe, click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload, and in the description box below, you'll find the link to my Twitter, where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I will see you guys next time.